Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 5. I hope you all had a safe and enjoyable 4th of July weekend. As I mentioned last week, your midterm grades are going to be available by tomorrow night. So, probably by Wednesday morning, you'll have access to those. Again, in principle, they don't mean anything. They don't go on your official record or anything, but they are a good way to measure where you are at this point in the semester. One other kind of basic announcement. So, as you see, all of the remaining assignments are available to you. Um, if you have work that you need to catch up on, obviously do that first. But I just want to encourage those of you who want to work ahead, you can, certainly can. If you read through your assignment sheets and you have questions, I'm happy to answer those as well. This week we're going to focus on two things that we're going to write as we turn our attention these next 2 weeks to argumentative writing and using research and sources. So the first assignment is mainly a fact-finding mission. It's called Why Should I Trust This? Understanding Sources. And so let's get into that. Much of the internet we encounter presents itself as true without offering any obvious way to judge its veracity. Factor in the influence of confirmation bias, our willingness to accept something as true as long as it aligns with our existing beliefs, and we have an online atmosphere that makes it very difficult to discern what is true and what is not. If you spend any time on social media, especially Facebook, I know a lot of the younger generation does not use Facebook, which is smart. Give it up. It's what you should do. It's what we all should do. But our parents and our grandparents seem to really love Facebook, and they sometimes disseminate information that is blatantly false and sometimes insane on that platform. But Facebook is not the only guilty party. Just about anywhere you look, you can see false information, just about everywhere. So for us, it's very important, especially in this climate, to be able to make distinctions between what is true and what is not, because in the words of Stanford researchers, credible information is to civic engagement what clean air and water are to public health. In other words, if you're going to be a citizen in this country and in this world, you really need to be informed of facts. Otherwise, you're going to be solicited by evil sometimes, people who don't have the best interests at heart can promote things that are blatantly false. Okay, so you're going to do two things. There's two purposes to this experience. One, you're going to practice a process for checking online information for accuracy, and two, you're going to spread the word to others on how to do this, okay, by describing the process you use. In other words, you're going to be narrating what you did to check the accuracy of a source, okay? So your audience in this case is someone who has come to you with a source or a fact or something that they are not sure if it's true or not. They've asked for your help in determining its accuracy, but also in better understanding why they should trust or not trust the information. Your piece should leave the audience better armed to engage in their own online fact-checking process, having learned from your example. In other words, like I said, you have two purposes. You're going to find a source that you want to check for its accuracy. You're going to write first and foremost, here's what the source is, and I determined it to be false or I determined it to be true. That's what your initial sort of thing will be. And then the rest of the essay will be a description of how you went about it, what you literally did. You're going to tell us the steps. You can even list them in order if you want, instead of writing in paragraph form. You're going to create a process by which someone could replicate what you did to try to find the truth in a source. I'll give you a for instance here. So a couple, maybe a month or two back, in the midst of this coronavirus insanity, actually, one of my former professors in graduate school had put something on Facebook that was essentially this. Had Donald Trump here and this kind of insane tweet that said American shops want to open, hair needs cutting, demo craps, which is awesome, don't want to bite the bullet, but that's the price we have to pay. Some oldies will have to die. We're in God's hands, folks. Liberate America. And listen, I hate Donald Trump. I think he's a complete and utter monster. And that's fine. If you like him, that's fine. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is, this tweet was submitted. This is on Newsbreak, which is some sort of weird news app. And what happened was my professor had seen this, and you see it's got the blue check mark, it's got the hallmark, it's even at, real Donald Trump, which I think his handle is real Donald J. Trump, by the way. Um, and so she believed that this was a real thing that he said, because he does tweet insane things sometimes. So it is, it's not beyond the scope of imagination that he might say this. But it looks a little fishy, right? Even for Trump, this looks a little fishy. So, very quickly, I did some basic research. I went looking, just kind of Google it, to try to figure out, did this insanity actually happen? The font didn't look right, obviously. And so Snopes is a great fact-checking place, right? Um, you can pretty much find stuff here pretty quickly. So this is labeled satire. In other words, it's someone impersonating President Trump and doing it that way. So that was a pretty easy one. Maybe some of yours won't be as easy, but just keep that in mind as you work through the process. Okay. So here is the process that you are going to go through. First, you're going to find a source you want to check. Potentially dubious sources are pretty easy to locate. They frequently circulate on social media. A good way to potentially identify one is to be alert to a moment when your own confirmation bias may have kicked in. When you see information you desperately want to be true, or false for that matter, that desire is so intense it may be overriding the rational part of your brain. Okay. And some of these sources are even the case where it might be some kernel of truth, or I know you've certainly seen people share things that are like 3 or 4 years old and they're acting like it's happening today. That's another sort of type of falsity that you can identify. So really anything. Social media is a great place to look. If you have a potentially ribald uncle or aunt, or parent, I don't know, or a friend from high school, depending on how old you are, who is kind of insane and says insane things, their page is a good start, right? Also, another good place to do this is if you look on maybe like a social media page of a news magazine or something, and then look into the comments section. Anyone who's like being kind of like a troll, click on their profile and see what they share. I know that's kind of a weird way to go about this, but you're going to find some crazy crap, and that's kind of the idea here, right? So you're going to examine the questionable claim after that, and then, rather than just examining the source itself for clues, you want to use the tools of the internet, as I did there. I kind of Googled this, found out in Snopes, etc. You want to check for previous fact-checking work. That's what Snopes is. You want to go upstream from the source, and then read laterally. So try to kind of read around the issue to see if there's any validity to what is happening. So the quickest way to check on a questionable claim, obviously, is to see if someone else had a similar suspicion as I did with this, the one example I gave you, and if they've already studied the issue. A quick web search asking if someone you're not sure about, if something you're not sure about is true, may lead you to a fact-checking website, such as Snopes, etc. When we say going upstream, what they mean is tracing the claim to its original source. So if you can find the original source, you stand a better chance of understanding the origins of the claim. To read laterally means that you'll read what other people say about the source of the claim. With the proliferation of digital media, it's often difficult to stay on top of every last source of information and be aware of any potential biases. Some sites are even specifically designed to be deceptive. You want to learn what you can about the site and author making the claim in order to help assess the credibility. Now, one thing I want you to make sure you understand is I'm not looking for satire here. For instance, things from The Onion, they're meaning to be silly, right? They're meaning to be false. The example I gave you is satire, but it was presented in a manner that people thought was real, and that's kind of what we're looking for, okay? So again, this is more, you can read more in depth here. Essentially, your job is to report these findings. So you're going to make a statement, whether you're going to present, here's the source that I looked into, I think it's true or false, here's why I think it's true or false, and then you're going to also describe the steps by which you went about this process, okay? So that's due Sunday, as everything else is, and we'll go from there. So that's not the only fun thing that you get to do this week. The other thing that you get to do is my favorite assignment of the entire semester, and this is Mini Experience 3, is a hot dog a sandwich? So, some arguments are impossible to solve. For instance, there's no single answer that will be satisfactory to everyone because the truth is likely somewhere in the middle. This may be true of all arguments, but we're going to not think about those. We're going to think about an impossible argument. Is a hot dog a sandwich? Yes, absolutely. No, of course not. I bet you already feel passionately one way or another about this pressing issue, and think those who differ are horribly misguided. Okay, so this is where our argument lies. So you want to convince the audience that your position on the question of whether a hot dog is a sandwich is correct. You must do this without relying on research. Okay, so no sources on this one. You're going to do it entirely based on your own rationale and experience. All right. So you're going to try to make this case to people who are interested in it, which is everyone. The idea here is to be persuasive. You want the audience to walk away agreeing with you. At the same time, exposure to the argument should leave your audience more knowledgeable about the subject than they were previously. So your process here, this is important. The first thing you need to do is determine what a sandwich is, right? Figure out what a sandwich is and define it in your paper. And then decide if a hot dog fits into that category. Does it fit the criteria or does it not? So then you want to argue the opposite in practice, right? Before you've written your document, you want to think about the counterpoints, right? You want to think, what is the best argument against your position? What are people likely to say to kind of tear you down? And then you're going to have to be able to craft a response to that, right? And you're going to write an argument. You're going to draft, revise, and edit this persuasive argument where you're going to definitively state, I don't want any wishy-washies, right? You're either going to say, yes, it is, no, it is not, and here's why. All right. This always lends to itself to great debate, and we'll see where you go from there. That's it. If you guys have questions, please let me know. I do also want to make sure that you're aware the next week's essay is a little longer. Though you joined Amber and Danny for the discussion of just mercy on this past Thursday, the argumented essay is present here. You basically want to take a look at this if you want to work ahead. It's up to you, obviously, but this week's I think is kind of light, so you might want to get a head start on your argumentative essay from there. All right, that's it. If you have questions, let me know. Have a good week.